Welcome back to our channel. Think pennies are worthless? Think again. These rare cents are worth a small fortune. In 1979, the air in America carried a certain weight. Economic uncertainty, shifting political tides, and technological curiosity painted a complex picture. The country was at a crossroads, entering an era of rapid transformation. Amid these changes, the U.S. Mint maintained its rhythm, producing millions of coins daily, quiet instruments of commerce that passed from hand to hand without a second glance. Among them was the 1979 Lincoln cent, struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, meant to continue the legacy of a design first introduced in 1909. At first glance, there was nothing remarkable about these pennies. They were copper-plated zinc coins with a familiar face, Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But within one of the countless bags that left the mint that year, an error emerged, an error that would remain buried for years before beginning its strange journey toward rarity and revelation. It began without any fanfare. A batch of coins, perhaps misaligned slightly during the hubbing process, bore an almost imperceptible mistake. Nothing dramatic. No missing elements. No blank spaces. Just a soft, ghost-like shadow behind some of the lettering, and a curious doubling in Lincoln's eye. The kind of detail that would never be caught by a machine. Only a sharp eye could detect it, and even then, only if the light struck just right. For decades, this anomaly passed unnoticed. The coins were spent, stored, lost, and saved without anyone realizing they were different. It wasn't until a seasoned coin collector named Marcus Delaney, an unassuming man from Des Moines who had spent a lifetime studying Lincoln cents, stumbled across a strange-looking 1979 penny in a bulk lot he had purchased online. Something about it didn't feel ordinary. The coin had an unusual thickness in the lettering, and the date looked strangely split. He thought perhaps it was mechanical doubling at first, a common and less valuable error. But something tugged at his curiosity. Under magnification, the details became clearer. The word Liberty showed a crisp, secondary image beneath each letter. The motto, "In God We Trust," had what appeared to be shadowing. Most remarkably, Lincoln's eye appeared doubled, as if looking in two directions at once. This wasn't machine damage. It was a double die obverse, a genuine mint error created when the die itself receives a misaligned second impression during its creation. Marcus had seen similar errors in older pennies, like the famous 1955 and 1972 double dies. But he'd never encountered one from 1979. He sent the coin for grading, not expecting much. When it came back as a verified double die obverse with a Mint State 65 designation, his hands trembled. He knew this coin didn't just belong in a binder. It was something much more. Word traveled slowly at first, as it always does with obscure modern finds. But within months, more collectors began to search their 1979 cents. A few more examples surfaced, all with consistent doubling on the obverse, particularly in the inscriptions and Lincoln's features. The number of verified specimens was small, perhaps no more than a few dozen in the early years, but that was enough. The coin had entered the numismatic radar. What followed was a gradual but compelling rise in interest. Dealers who once scoffed at modern errors began watching auctions more closely. Coin shows saw increased traffic at booths offering Lincoln cents. Collectors who had spent years hunting through rolls for 1969's or 1983 double dies now added 1979 to their list. Each newly discovered example brought new excitement, and new questions. Why had this error gone unnoticed for so long? And how many more could still be out there? The market responded cautiously at first. Early sales fetched between a few hundred and a couple $1,000s. But as demand grew and higher-grade examples emerged, prices began to surge. A Mint State 66 specimen sold for $23,000 at a Florida auction. Another, certified as MS 67 red with pristine surfaces and deep copper luster, crossed the block in Chicago for an astonishing $41,000. Still, the real shock came with a coin discovered in upstate New York. That particular coin, unearthed by a teenage collector sorting through his grandfather's coin jar, showed doubling so strong that even untrained eyes could spot it without magnification. It was sent to PCGS and came back as MS-68 red, the highest grade ever recorded for the 1979 double-die obverse cent. The coin had only one light surface mark, flawless color, and perfectly struck features. When it hit the auction floor, anticipation built like a storm. Bidders from across the globe joined in, and after a fierce round of phone and online offers, the coin sold for $117,500. That moment changed the entire narrative around the 1979 Lincoln cent. What was once dismissed as an unremarkable modern year now stood alongside some of the most desirable coins of the series. The error itself wasn't dramatic in the way that struck through grease or clipped planchet coins are. Its power was in its subtlety, in the way it rewarded observation, patience, and understanding. But then came the twist that in late 2023, a private collection was brought to auction following the passing of a longtime Midwest collector. Inside was a sealed roll of 1979 pennies labeled simply, DDO, Keep. Within that roll were 4 coins, each with slightly different levels of doubling. One of them, marked with a red sticker, was unlike any seen before. Not only did it feature the same strong obverse doubling, but it also had an unusually shallow strike on the reverse. Experts initially assumed it was a weak strike or die deterioration, but further analysis revealed a rare transitional planchet mix. The coin had been struck on a leftover blank not meant for the Lincoln cent at all, but for a foreign contract. A fluke of materials and timing. One that turned this already rare coin into something almost mythic. The coin was confirmed to be authentic and unique, a double die struck on a wrong planchet. It became the subject of multiple articles and interviews. Museums inquired about loans. When it was eventually sold through private negotiation, the final price was not disclosed publicly, but insiders estimated the figure well above previous records. Today, the 1979 double-die Lincoln cent stands as a powerful example of hidden value. A coin once tossed aside as modern and mundane has found its place among legends. Its rarity isn't defined by mintage numbers or public attention, but by the layers of detail it holds. A mistake born from precision gone slightly awry, enough to create not chaos, but magic. The number of known specimens remains limited. Some experts believe only a few hundred exist in all grades, and fewer than 20 in gem mint state conditions. Collectors now chase them with renewed vigor, knowing each find adds to a story still unfolding. As of now, depending on the grade, clarity of doubling, and surface preservation, the 1979 double-die Lincoln cent carries a market value ranging from $48,000 to $122,000. A penny by denomination, but a treasure by design, proof that the smallest things often hold the greatest mysteries. And sometimes, those mysteries are just waiting to be found in the palm of your hand. In 1987, the United States stood on the edge of transformation. The Cold War was slowly thawing, Wall Street was booming then crashing, and personal computers were beginning to appear in more and more homes. Amid this backdrop of shifting times and emerging technologies, the U.S. Mint continued its unbroken rhythm of striking coins, millions at a time, with little pause or deviation. The Lincoln cent, by then in its 78th year of production, rolled off presses across Philadelphia and Denver, unchanged in its familiar design. On one side, Abraham Lincoln's enduring profile. On the other, the Lincoln Memorial standing proud beneath, United States of America. These were coins meant for everyday use, overlooked in daily transactions and scooped up in handfuls of change. But within the sea of uniformity, a small anomaly slipped through, one whose significance would only come to light decades later. That year, the mint was under subtle pressures. With demand high and production timelines tight, even the most finely tuned machinery saw wear. Dies were reused, sometimes beyond their ideal lifespan. The presses ran constantly, and on occasion, the hubbing process, used to produce working dies, was slightly misaligned. Most errors were caught and scrapped. But a few escaped. Among them, a batch of pennies from the Philadelphia Mint bore the telltale signs of a double die on the obverse. The differences were barely perceptible without close scrutiny, but they were there, waiting. Years passed before the first of these coins came under the magnifying glass of a dedicated collector named Elise Morgan. Elise had spent a lifetime scouring rolls of cents, specializing in die varieties and mint errors. She was methodical, patient, and utterly obsessed with minor details most people ignored. While organizing boxes of pennies for a regional coin show, Elise came across an oddly gleaming 1987 cent. It didn't stand out for its luster but for the thickness in the date. The 1 and the 9 seemed to have shadows, faint but raised. The letters in Liberty were slightly bulged, as if someone had painted over them with a second stroke. Her curiosity piqued, Elise placed the coin under intense magnification. What she saw defied her expectations. The doubling was subtle but unmistakable, not the flat, shelf-like effect of machine doubling, but rounded, true doubling caused during die creation. The split serifs, the slightly doubled profile around Lincoln's eye, and the shift in the letters of the motto, "In God We Trust," all pointed to a genuine double die obverse. She cross-referenced known varieties. No such error was officially listed for 1987. She had found something new. Elise sent the coin to a third-party grader. When the coin returned, certified as Mint State 65 double die obverse, it sparked immediate conversation in specialist forums. Some collectors dismissed it as a fluke. Others began rechecking their own 1987 rolls. Soon, another was found, then another. Each shared the same visual traits. The doubling was consistent across specimens, pointing to a single working die at the Philadelphia Mint that had been misaligned during its hubbing stage. The number of known examples remained small. As of early 2024, only a limited group of these 1987 double die obverse cents have been confirmed and graded, each telling the same quiet story of oversight within the Mint's mechanical heart. And yet, their subtle nature makes them difficult to spot, even for experienced eyes. This has only added to their allure. Collectors now began to trace the error's journey. Based on die wear and strike quality, experts deduced that the double die likely existed early in the production cycle but wasn't noticed due to its subtle appearance. Many of the coins were likely spent, their error overlooked. The few that survived in high-grade, uncirculated condition are exceedingly rare. And in the world of error coins, rarity and recognition make for an explosive combination. Then came an unexpected twist. In mid-2023, a collector from Nevada submitted what he believed to be a high-grade example of the 1987 double die cent. The coin arrived at the grading service sealed in a flip, accompanied by a handwritten note claiming that it had never been circulated. Upon evaluation, the coin was confirmed as a double die obverse. But that wasn't the twist. What shocked experts was the planchet. The coin had been struck on a transitional bronze blank, left over from before the Mint's full transition to copper-plated zinc in 1982. Somehow, a stray bronze planchet remained in the Mint system and ended up in the press in 1987. Not only was this piece a double die, it was also a rare off-metal strike. Its weight confirmed the bronze composition, and its coloration bore the deep reddish hue of older cents. This coin, the only known example of its kind, a 1987 double die obverse on a bronze planchet, was auctioned later that year. It became the centerpiece of the auction house's marketing push, featured in numismatic publications and national press. When the bidding opened, the room was silent. When it closed, the final price stunned everyone, $104,500 to a private buyer on the East Coast. The sale re-energized interest in the 1987 cent coin. Hunters began pulling bank boxes, searching for any sign of that elusive doubling. Dealers added magnification booths to their coin show tables. YouTube videos dissected the error, side by side with known examples. Some collectors focused solely on the motto, others zeroed in on Lincoln's eye, believing it held the clearest evidence of the mistake. And as more coins were submitted and verified, the demand only grew, but the total number of high-grade 1987 double die obverse cents remains low. Most were likely spent and worn beyond recognition. The few that do surface, especially in Mint State 65 and above, command high premiums. Each coin is not just a piece of copper or zinc, but a fragment of unintended history, an echo of a tiny deviation in the Mint's process that produced a result far more valuable than anyone could have foreseen. What fascinates collectors most is how modern errors, particularly those like the 1987 cent, still emerge decades later. They remain unlisted in many price guides. They lack the fame of the 1955 or 1969 varieties. But that lack of notoriety only adds to their mystery. These are not coins handed down through legend. They are discovered in real time, by real people, reshaping what collectors believe to be true today, depending on condition, certification, and clarity of the doubling. The 1987 double-die Lincoln cent holds a market value between $40,000 and $108,000. A coin struck in silence, now echoing with growing acclaim. Hidden for years in drawers and jars, now a beacon of discovery for those willing to look just a little closer. In 2006, the world seemed to be accelerating. Technology was evolving rapidly, digital communication was beginning to eclipse the physical, and global markets were experiencing a strange blend of growth and unpredictability. Amidst this sweeping modernity, the production of everyday currency continued without pause. The U.S. Mint, with its machines operating at full capacity, churned out billions of coins that year, including a staggering number of 1-cent pieces. The Lincoln penny, by then long established in its zinc composition with a thin copper coating, was as familiar and unremarkable to the public as a passing car horn or the change in a vending machine. It bore Lincoln's familiar profile on the obverse, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had persisted for decades. But hidden within this year's mass production, among the countless standard specimens, a quiet anomaly took shape. The conditions that allowed this anomaly to occur were, ironically, a result of the mint's precision. In its pursuit of volume and efficiency, even the slightest miscalibration could allow an error to go unnoticed. That year, a particular set of working dies used at the Philadelphia Mint developed a flaw during the hubbing process. A secondary impression wasn't perfectly aligned with the first, resulting in what would later be identified as a double die obverse. The characteristics were subtle, not the dramatic doubling of previous decades, but enough to catch the eye of someone trained to notice imperfection in a sea of consistency. The discovery came in the most unsuspecting way. A young collector named Darren Monroe, a college student in Ohio who had recently inherited his late grandfather's coin collection, began sorting through bags of loose change with a casual curiosity. He had no formal training in numismatics, just a sense of nostalgia and a growing interest in errors and varieties. One night, while inspecting a handful of 2006 cents under a 10x magnifier, he saw something that made him freeze. The "In God We Trust" motto appeared to have a slight doubling on the tops of the letters. The date, 2006, looked thicker than usual. The word "Liberty" seemed to possess an echo, as if the letters had been stamped twice. Unsure of what he had found, Darren posted high-resolution images to an online coin forum. Opinions were mixed. Some thought it was strike doubling, a mechanical shift that produces flattened, worthless duplicates. But a few veteran collectors suspected otherwise. They urged him to have the coin graded and authenticated. He did, sending it off to a leading third-party grading service. Weeks later, the results came back: double die obverse, mint state 66 red. Verified. Real. Rare. That first confirmed example sent a ripple through the collector community. Until then, no significant double die had been officially attributed to the 2006 Lincoln cent. Darren's discovery reignited interest in post-2000 pennies, which had long been dismissed as mundane due to their modern production methods. Suddenly, people who had once ignored rolls of new cents were tearing them open, scrutinizing every detail with renewed purpose. Soon, a few more examples surfaced. A Michigan dealer reported finding two in a customer's coin jar. A Florida collector uncovered one while roll hunting through a box purchased from a bank. Each of these coins showed consistent traits: strong doubling in the motto, a thickened appearance to the date, and ghosting around the edges of Lincoln's bust. They weren't dramatic at first glance, but unmistakable under magnification. As the error gained recognition, the market began to shift. Early sales for lower-grade examples hovered in the hundreds, but collectors quickly began paying four-figure sums for coins in mint state 65 or better. The demand wasn't just driven by scarcity, it was fueled by intrigue. How could such a modern coin, produced in the age of advanced quality control, have slipped through unnoticed? And how many more could still be waiting to be found? Then, in early 2022, a coin surfaced that changed everything. A longtime variety specialist, known within the hobby simply as Alton, submitted a 2006 cent to PCGS that stunned the graders. The doubling was the strongest yet observed. The strike was razor sharp. The color, deep, blazing red. Most notably, the coin bore no visible contact marks, no wear, and an almost mirror-like brilliance. It came back graded MS-68 red, a near-perfect example. But that wasn't the twist came when metallurgical tests revealed that the coin was slightly heavier than standard. Upon deeper analysis, it was discovered that this particular cent had been struck on a transitional bronze planchet, an error believed impossible post-1982. Somehow, whether through leftover stock or human error, an outdated blank had been fed into the press and struck with the 2006 design using the flawed die. This one-of-a-kind hybrid, part modern double die, part throwback to an earlier composition, sparked a media frenzy within coin circles. The coin was auctioned privately to a high-profile East Coast collector and fetched a reported $89,500, setting a new benchmark for post-2000 penny errors. Collectors who had previously ignored modern cents now chased 2006 examples with laser focus, hoping to find another transitional mystery, or at least a solid double die. Interest in the era began to build a mythology of its own. YouTube channels launched tutorials on how to identify the doubling. eBay listings were flooded with misidentified coins, while legitimate specimens quietly changed hands at record pace through private networks. The U.S. Mint issued no statement, and the error remains unacknowledged in official publications, which only adds to its aura. In the time since Darren's first find, dozens of additional examples have been confirmed, though high-grade survivors remain scarce. Many were likely spent or handled without a second thought. The market has matured, and collectors now recognize that the 2006 double die obverse Lincoln cent is not just a modern anomaly but a key variety in the broader landscape of error coinage. For those lucky enough to own one, the coin represents more than monetary value. It's proof that even in an era of machine precision, mistakes can still slip through, waiting to be discovered by those willing to look closely. These coins serve as tiny windows into the heart of the mint, moments where human oversight, machine fatigue, and chance combine to create something extraordinary. Today, depending on grade, color designation, and strength of doubling, the 2006 double die Lincoln cent carries a value ranging from $32,000 to $90,000. A penny in the pocket of time, elevated by its imperfection, and transformed into a symbol of what remains possible, even in the age of modern minting.